Hi all, I'm Vishnath. Today we'll be seeing how we can create a Spring Boot app that can process the user information so that user can add, delete, update and retrieve the user. And when I say user, the table in the database will look like where uh, it will have a primary key. Along with that, it will have the related information like a name, date of birth, email and address. So let's start. Let's let's create a Spring Boot starter project where I call the app name as a username and I click on finish. You can see that all the selected dependencies, I have selected a list of dependencies like actuators. This will help us to know the health of the application and JPA and H2 for the in-memory H2 for the in-memory database and JPA is a implementation for that and HATEOAS to make it uh, Richardson's level to maturity model. To display additional web links, we can use the HATEOAS and validation for have annotation based validation and Hall browser. This will give additional flexibility to add new links and Lambok to avoid the boiler code. Let's start with our entity. So user is our entity class and it is going to be there in the entity package. So or you can also call this as a model and the package name should be always small letters. Entity. I'm also you can optionally have annotation as a table where you can say like if you want to define your table in the database to be with a different name other than the class name, you can use this field and you can mention like you know user table. User table. So private integer ID, private string name, private local date, birth date, birth date, private date of birth, email and address, private string email and address. So log. So for this table, we have created integer type as a primary key. So we are annotating that with ID, and also we are trying to say like it is going to be a generated value, and it is going to take care by the code itself. The type is going to be an auto generation, and in order to create the getter setters, we are using Lambok uh, annotation, which will help us to generate getter, setters, argumenter, constructor, toString, and other methods within the class. So let me import the annotations. So once we are done with the user class, now we are going to create an interface, user repo that is going to use JPA repo. So and that is going to take user class and in integer and repo. So this will help us to generate all the required code, and I'm moving this to her repo. And now let's create a controller. And I'm going to create a controller in the controller package. Because I have changed the package, there was a compilation error where I'm going to import that class. And inside this controller, the methods that we are interested is to do all these operations. So so public add user. So I'm going to say it is going to be a REST controller. REST controller, and I'm going to use my repo AutoAD with my repo user repo as user service, and and user. So now I'm going to, whenever I create the user, I'll be mentioning like response entity, response entity, uh, where I would be mentioning like this is my user. I'll be creating my uh, response entity and as well as my user from my model, and and, and user, and I'll be uh, returning service dot, because I'm going to add it, I'm going to save my user. So the user that I'm going to get is from the request body annotation, so that the mapping is going to takes place and the same value is going to be saved, where I'm going to say like I have saved the user, and in order to return the valid details, what we can say is response entity is created, uh, if where we have to mention the location of what it is being created. So I'm going to create a variable where it is going to take my URL, and yes, UCB. This servlet URI component builder class has a method called from current request, cu- current request, where we can mention that path of it based on the primary key. So I'm going to build and expand instead of a build method. Build and expand user dot get ID to URI. So this is how my URI is being built. URI is being built. So whenever I add my user, I'm just saying like 201, I'm sending 201 response, and also I'm mentioning what is my path for the user. User DB. User DB will have a user ID that is been created, and I'm going to return that user ID for the created user. And that's all on the create method. And now we we will see onto the next methods, uh, like delete method. And in terms of mapping this, because we are going to post mapping, and I'm going to say, because it's an URL, whenever I say like it should be small letters and it should be plurals, so it should be users. So now I'll be interested in creating a delete mapping, uh, a delete um, request based on one particular user ID, uh, where I'll be saying that as an ID. And because it is going to be a delete user, I'll be mentioning as a path variable instead of a request body parameter. Path variable and string ID. So what I'll be interested is to again find the user by ID, find user by ID, and if the user is present, then I'm going to uh, delete the user. So because it is going to take the integer, I'm going to convert it integer dot parts to int. And obviously this can the ID can be present or not present, so it is going to optionally give me the user if there is an exception, or else throw. I'm trying to say like over here I'm going to use a lambda expression, and I'm trying to say like it is going to be my new runtime exception, where I can say like user is not found, user with um, ID not found, ID as percentile yes. So string formatter, string dot format, comma percentile, comma ID. So yeah, so that the once we get an ID, we know that there is an user. So we are going to delete this user by user ID that we have found in the database. Since the user has been deleted, we should return the uh, details as a no content, and there will not be um, any content that I'm not sending in to the user as. So if I format my code, so Now we are going to create one more method where we are going to update the data of a given user, where I using a put mapping for a particular user. I'm instead of deleting, I'm going to update it. So even there I'll be using like a path variable. Along with that, I'll be using the user information that is mentioned as part of request body, where I'll be interested in copying this line again. And now you can see I have the value. Eventually, I'll be able to find the value from the database. And one, if it is not there, definitely the same exception is going to be thrown. And what I would be interested is to again to save the user, but this time the user, whatever the information that was present before I update it, I'm going to set the ID um, of the supplied user information with my the values that are there in my database dot get ID, so that update can takes place. If this line is not present, then again it is again going to be same as a post method, where it will create a new details onto it. So because we have accepted the data onto the database, hence we are also sending the response as we have accepted the data to the end user for the post mapping, sorry, for the put mapping, which is for modifications. And now let's retrieve the information. So for retrieval, there are two types of methods that we can write. Uh, so the first method that I can write is to retrieve all the users. So I'm going to I'm going to copy the same method, and I'm going to say, because I'm going to get the information, get the users over here. First method, I'm interested in getting all the user informations. So retrieve all, retrieve all users. So it is going to be my list of all the users. So where I'm going to say like if all the users are present, then get me all the users. So I will not be having any path variables or path parameters. In fact, this is going to be a simple one when compared to all the other things. So what I'll be saying is user dot find all. This will give me all the details of it. So directly I'll be saying like my entity response, if it is okay within the body. What I would be interested is to find display all the details of my uh, users that are present. So let me import the mapping, like get mapping, and as well as list Java utils, so that it is compilation free. So this is my users method. Now we are going to create one more get method for each user information. So get user by ID. So when we have passed the user information by ID using the path variable, we are trying to get all the information. So if you see it, the user information, we are trying to reuse it, the user information, whatever we have used it. And this method is going to be a little tricky because over here we are not passing this as a returning that as an uh, list or user. Instead, we will be returning this as an entity model type of user in order to return entity model is from HATEOAS. So we are going to implement the uh, HATEOAS part of it, where we are going to say like entity model model value is going to be my entity of method. I'm going to call my entity model of method. So I'm going to get the entity model for the user that we if I have a user and I'm going to create a model for that, and eventually I'm going to uh, return my model back to here and before I do it to that I'm going to add an additional links to my model by using add links method. I can just say as a link, and I'm going to create this link. Uh, my link is going to be uh, uh, from the uh, how I'm going to create my link is I'm going to create a new link with my relative where I can say it is an additional user info link, and I'm going to create my new link uh, basically as uh, in order to create a link we can use WMLB class which is a web component MVC link builder, and inside that class we have a couple of methods like link to is one of the method that we can use in order to give a link, and again this class also have a another method called method on to inside this class. I'm just trying to say like it is inside this class, and the link that I'm interested is to get all the users retrieve all users. So I want to create a link to retrieve all users to this class. So so this is the new link that we have as, and change to, yeah, it is a builder type, and change to new link. Okay, so uh, now we can see that um, a using a web link adapter we are able to link this method URL to here, and we are going to return that, and let's see if it is working with the help of postman. So um, yeah, and also we can start the application. Now the logic is ready. So let's go to the application module and run as Spring Boot application. Meantime, Postman is also ready. And inside the console, because we have activated a lot of details, we can see like application is running on the default port 8080, and we can also see like it is connected to the h2 in memory database and the console, and in order to connect to it, these are the details. Application has started, and we have also configured actuators to see the health of the application. So let's go to the postman now, and let's see the details by sending. Yeah, application is able to get the details. Let's create the details. In order to create the details, the method that we have used is a post, and go to the body, and inside the body, because we are going to send the details, we we can send either as a raw, or we can set as a JSON format. Because it's a JSON format, if we go back to our user class, we can see the details of the user class. I uh, uh, and the details that we have is name, date of birth, name, name, first name. Let's give like this, and then birth date, birth date. Let's give that as 12, 12, 2012. So by default, it takes uh, year, month, date format, and email, test@gmail.com, and address, nowhere, somewhere, world. So uh, these are the details that we are trying to, send. And once we send it, uh, we can see like there is an error because we have missed comma, and the default validation has kicked in. If you are trying to give a right details, we are going to see like the response is going to be a 201, and the user has to be knowing the details of this particular one man, saying like where he got the details as. So so if you go to the headers, you can see that this is the user information that it has created as. So if I pick this URL, and if I change this URL to a get method, I'll see the uh, status is 200 valid response, where I'm getting the user information, and inside the body I can see along with my user information whatever I have created, it has updated. And now let's see update method, where I want to where I want to update the value, and I want to say now here. So uh, I have updated it, and it has accepted the response, and there is no data. And let's see the details of it, whether it has, yeah, you can see the information is being accepted. And let's create another user, second user. So when we are creating an user, this is the request. So second one, So in order to see like get all users, now you will see like a data of two persons. Now we'll delete the first person, and you see the response as the 200. And when you perform a delete action, we are trying to say like we want to delete the first user, and when we send it, you see like a 204. That means the data has deleted, so there is nothing to display for user one. In order to check it, we can say as get users, we have only got only information of second user. Let's delete the second user as well. So there is no user. So when you say like get users, there is no information for that. And also you can see that when the second user is being passed, you see like we are getting a runtime exception that we have coded with the user ID 2 not found. Uh, so and for example, if you give any other information, you are always trying to get that user ID with these details are not found.